everybody, Northwest Cavalryman here. I'm going to talk today about my Glock 17 Gen 5 MOS version. So this is part of my series of rating my firearms from 12th to 1st. And again, of course, afterwards I will have one video that puts it all together, but this is the reference video. This is where I tell you how I came up with the numbers, how I came up with the rankings. So this is my Glock video. So this is a Gen 5. Originally started off with Gen 4, but I kind of wore that out. So this is my Gen 5. I do like the MOS edition, and which I think is a great upgrade. So the trigger weight is and was 5 pounds, 7.5 ounces. It might have been a little bit heavier before I put the Apex trigger in, but not by much. And of course, because it's a double action only, according to the FBI and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that the subsequent trigger pulls are going to be exactly the same. So yeah, that's not all that great of a trigger, is in my opinion, even with the upgraded trigger on here, not my best as far as the triggers that I have on all of my firearms. So both for original trigger pull and the current trigger pull, I'm going to rate that as a 10 as far as the weight goes, because it is not a bad weight, 5 pounds, 7.5 ounces. However, the as far as subsequent trigger pulls, so second and beyond, it's also obviously 5 pounds, 7.5 ounces. And so when I compare that to the rest of my firearms, this drops down considerably. Instead of 10 points, basically being in third place, it goes down to sixth place and comes up with a score of 5. Now, as far as the trigger feel goes, that's where this gun really drops. It is still, it's a lot better than what it was before, but still in my mind it's fairly mushy. It's a mushy trigger pull, and the release is not as crisp as what I like on my other firearms. So I'm going to give that, actually out of all my firearms, it's going to be the worst. It's going to be a number 1. As far as trigger reset, it's a little bit better, although it's not great. So we'll take a look at the trigger reset here. Hope you all can see that. It comes out, it's not that far out, but yeah, it really, in my opinion, the feel of this trigger and the reset does not lend itself to very quick shooting compared to the other firearms that I own. Now, trigger consistency, better than my double single actions, obviously, because all the trigger pull is the same distance and the same weight. However, it's not as consistent as some of my other firearms, so I'm going to rate that consistency. I'm going to give it 6, so it's right in the middle. So it's not bad. So 6 points out of 12. Ergonomics. Now, the feel of the gun is blocky. However, I can get very high on the back strap, and I do have the extended back strap in there because I do like the full back strap to fill up my hand, and I can get a very high grip on this. It's not the most comfortable, but it lends to very accurate shooting, I find, especially with the grip angle being, I believe it's 22 degrees as opposed to 18. I could be wrong on the exact angles of the grip, but it forces you to really, or it allows you to really get down on that gun to really bring it into a good position. Although it doesn't feel great, because of how well I can get, how high I can get on the firearm, and how well I can shoot the firearm, I'm actually going to give it an 8 for ergonomics, even though it's a bit blocky feeling. It's not as comfortable as some of my firearms, so you know, I think a lot of y'all will probably disagree with that. However, I'm looking at more of a holistic point that it's I can get fairly high on it, so it does allow me to shoot well. So ergonomically, to allow for shootability, I actually kind of like that grip. The grip texture, actually I think they did a good job with the Gen 5s. They do feel a lot more grippy than the Gen 4s. I'm not using this in competition anymore, so I don't think I'll put grip tape on it. If I was, I definitely would put grip tape on it because I do like a very aggressive feel. However, this grip texture I find is sufficient. I know a lot of people will do a stipple job on it or use some grip tape, and generally I do really like an aggressive grip, but I find just for me, I found that this grip isn't all that bad. So I'm going to give the grip texture right in the middle. I'm going to give it a 5 points out of 12. So the grip texture is actually not bad as far as this firearm is concerned. Now the controls. The controls, some of them are ambidextrous, plus the magazine release is switchable. So the slide lock, slide release can be actuated from both sides. So I find that I can reach all of the controls with my thumb with a good grip on the firearm. So I don't have to move my hand at all. With the large back strap, my finger comes to a good place on the trigger. The one thing that I don't like about Glocks is I would prefer larger tabs for the takedown tabs to grab onto. I don't really like that, but they work. I also don't like pulling the trigger, having to pull the trigger, but a lot of the firearms are like that these days, so it's really something you can't really argue too much about. So the controls are in a really good place. As far as being able to reach them with my strong hand, however, I prefer guns that have more of the substantial slide lock slide release, so I can grab onto it and always hit it with my thumb as I'm bringing in my weak hand thumb, but I can thumb this down with my strong hand, so it's not really an issue. Now, I generally speaking have learned the overhand grip, and you can still do that with a red dot on it on the firearm. So, but I tend to, with a red dot, either use the front of the red dot or the forward slide serrations to rack. So, and when it's back, I find that when I insert a magazine, it's easy to hit the slide lock slide release on this firearm. Not as easy as some firearms, and then go into my shooting stance, shooting grip. Now, weight of the Glock. This is where the Glock actually comes out on top. I'm going to give that 12 points. So it's a number. It's in the first position as far as weight goes. If you're considering the lighter firearms, giving them the higher marks. Of course, there's some debate whether the lighter firearm's better because of recoil control. However, this firearm, as I said before, has some pretty good recoil control. So I'm going to give this 12 points out of 12 for weight. The weight comes in at 648 grams, which is 1.428 pounds. and or 22.85 ounces. So I think it's a good weight. You can carry this around all day and not even feel it actually, because well, I'm used to carrying around a really heavy gun on my previous profession, the Smith & Wesson 5946. So compared to that, this is a very, very light gun. So recoil management, I touched on that before. To me, this is a really flat shooting gun. I don't have a lot of recoil concerns on this gun because of the grip angle, because of how high I can get up on the firearm. I can control that recoil quite well, or manage it. So I'm going to give this fairly high as far as recoil management. In fact, I think I can control the recoil on this firearm better than or manage it better than any of my other firearms, so I'm actually giving this a 12 as well, so it's in #1 spot as far as recoil management goes. Now shootability, that's a different story. Shootability drops all the way down to the second lowest, so position 11 with 2 points. So that has a lot to do basically with the trigger. I find that the trigger doesn't lead to fast, lend a lot to fast shooting. I do control the firearm well, I do shoot the firearm well. However, with that trigger, you're never really going to get the most out of the firearm. Historical significance, given that a 7 out of 12. It wasn't the first polymer firearm. However, it was one of the first that was accepted widely by the police, probably because of the discounts that they had at the time. So historically, it's not the most historic firearm. It's only been around since I believe it's 1986 it came to the US, or 1987. So maybe a little bit before that. So it's not the most historically significant firearm, but because of its wide use and how well it's been accepted in the police community and civilian market, I do believe it does have some historical significance in that regard. I'm going to give that 7 points out of 12. Personal preference, fairly low on my personal preference as far as guns that I will take to the range. Of course, where I live, you can't carry firearms. If I was, this might be a little higher because of its weight. But because I can't carry a firearm, I'm no longer a police officer, and you can't carry it in civilian life, this is pretty much for range use, competition use. Yeah, so this is going to be fairly low. I'm going to give this 4 out of a possible 12. So it's going to come right in at 9th position with a 4 personal preference. Now aesthetics, I don't mind the look of the Glock. A lot of people think Glocks are ugly. I think it's become a classic looking gun. It's a simple looking gun. However, compared to my other firearms, it's not very elegant. So I'm going to give this, put it in 11th place and give it 2 points out of 12 for aesthetics. So it's not the ugliest gun, in my opinion. A lot of people think it is, but I'm giving it a fairly low score as well. However, I don't mind the look of it. I think it looks fine. I don't mind the blockiness, so that's where it stands. Altogether, this scores 91 points, surprisingly, and this is where I was very surprised with the outcome of these videos. Is this actually scores higher than my SIG 226, and I was very surprised about that. I didn't think it would, but when I broke down all of the categories and looked at this gun as objectively as possible, I found that this gun does come out above my 226. Although, gotta admit, I would grab that gun before I'd grab this one. I like the trigger better. So I guess it depends on what really you prefer, and I prefer the SIG over this. However, this did accumulate more points. So out of a possible 180, this scored 91 points, bringing it to position 7 in the list of my firearms from 12 to 1, or 1 to 12. Thanks, and stick around for more videos of this kind, and in the end we will show you the whole list from 12 counting down to 1, and this is basically your reference video so you can tell how I got there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Hey everybody, thank you very much for watching my videos. If you've enjoyed this content, please like the video and subscribe. We'll see you next time.